That was Tracy Neeporn of Nobu, Tribeca Grill, and, of course, the Acela Club at Citi Field, which I recommend highly to everybody. And you can listen to the Met games on WOR 710 radio and iHeart Media Company. You're listening to WR right now, of course, at Stribling's, New York. Remember, if you're selling, buying, or just thinking about it and you need to be connected to a top real estate professional, contact Tony Simone, and he will help you. Simone at stribling.com, TSIMONE at stribling.com. Speaking of Stribling, we have a guest today, Jeffrey Stockwell, who works for us and with us, and he's going to talk to us about the West Side and developments. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
So what's going on the West Side? Because it doesn't seem that you hear as much, about new developments on the West Side. We're always talking about them in other parts of the city, but the West Side was a place I lived when I first got out of college, and it's near and dear to me. My sister lives there in a classic building in the Majestic at 115 Central Park West at 72nd Street.
There are actually a number of new developments and conversions on the West Side. Stribling currently has 4 of them, and I'm working on 2 of them, 360 Central Park West and 272 West 86th Street.
So 360 Central Park West is at what street?
That's between 95th and 96th Streets. It's an old Candela building that was a rental for 85 years and is being completely renovated from top to bottom by Setra Ruddy Architects and really transformed into large homes with 3 to 6 bedrooms on the park.
So Rosario Candela is maybe the greatest residential architect in the history of New York City. In fact, there's this great old building, I think it's 12 East 97th, which used to be a hotel, and it's now an apartment building, and I love that. I love what Candela does. So how much has this building been changed and converted?
Well, this
altered?
building actually was a hotel as well. It was a men's hotel originally, and then converted in the 40s, I think, into a residential rental building. It had a lot of smaller units, and the market today is for big apartments. As you know, people are staying in the city, not moving to the suburbs once they have 2 or 3 children, and there's a shortage on the Upper West Side of large apartments. So what we've tried to do is create 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes that serve the needs of people who are currently in the neighborhood.
So how many units are in the building?
So that is a number that changes with some frequency because this is a conversion of a rental building, and it's a non-eviction plan, which means there are tenants in the building, and the sponsor has been in a long process of offering buyouts and offering apartments in other buildings if they would vacate their apartments. Many of them are choosing to do so, and as they do, we're able to combine units and create these new homes. We will end up with probably between 50 and 60 units in total, and that's split between 2 towers. We have 1 tower on 95th Street and another on 96th.
Okay, so from my limited knowledge of real estate, I believe that comes from an old rule in New York that you could only have a residential building at a certain height. Hence, the Majestic was built with 2 towers so that it wouldn't go too high.
Yes,
and I love the look.
Yes, and this one's somewhat unusual because there was a church on the property, and the church ran into financial difficulties in the late 20s. And so the church was torn down, and its school was torn down. And these 2 towers were built above a new church and a new school, and they're actually embedded inside of each building.
Well, I also love the West Side and that neighborhood because it's well located, even though it's up at 96th Street. I look at everything now by mass transportation.
Absolutely, and we're right on top of the subway with the B and C lines. And so even though it is at 96th Street, you can be at Rockefeller Center in 10 minutes.
Exactly, and that's a huge factor. It's almost easier to get from 96th Street to Midtown than from somewhere that's closer, like 64th and York or something.
Exactly. We've also had a number of people buy who work at Mount Sinai on the other side of the park or who have children in some of the schools on Upper Fifth Avenue, like St. Bernard's.
I take the subway. I live on 96 on the east side. I use this app. I have to talk about for a second, called Bus. And it's great because it has a GPS, so you see the buses and where they are. On 96th Street, they seem to be running every couple of minutes, so it's very handy. So what are some of the amenities? Does this building have a name, too?
No, we do not have a name. 360 Central Park West. One very nice thing that the developer decided to do was take the ground floor space, and instead of using that as commercial space or as a maisonette, it is our gym and children's playroom. So both the gym and the children's playroom have full views of Central Park and really brilliant light, which is quite nice.
And what price points are we at?
Our 3 million homes, our 3-bedroom homes start in the mid 3 millions, and our most expensive contract to date is 9 million.
And how large an apartment is that?
That's a 3,600 foot apartment. It's a quite large apartment.
What are the $3 million apartments that are priced at that point?
So in the mid 3 millions, you would get a 1,900 foot apartment with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms.
I love it. And do these have formal dining rooms or eat-in kitchens? What kind of layouts do they have?
Most of them have very large kitchens in the front of the house. That's one thing we wanted to do to differentiate ourselves from buildings such as the Majestic, where the kitchens tend to be in the back of the house. We wanted to have open, airy, light kitchens near the living space because that's what a lot of today's buyers want, since they don't have servants in a back kitchen who are bringing food out to a dining room.
Yeah, I've always wondered. I have owned a Classic 8, and I mean, it's funny because we turned the 2 maids' rooms into one small den. So, I can't imagine all those people packed into a little apartment back in the day. I chuckle at the thought. So I'm not sure how much time we have left, but let's talk about 86th Street as well.
That's an entirely different beast and a very interesting project. It's the facades of 3 C.P.H. Gilbert mansions. C.P.H. Gilbert was another noted architect. He designed the buildings that are currently the Jewish Museum, the Convent of the Sacred Heart, Cartier, and the Ukrainian Institute. Designed a lot of really notable mansions at the turn of the last
century. That's an interesting
century.
melange right there.
Yeah. Well, they all started as single-family houses and then moved on to different institutional uses. But it's the facades of 3 20-foot mansions on West 86th Street, and that's all that was retained. They will be restored. But behind them, we're creating 7 very large apartments that will be serviced by a doorman. So it's quite unusual to have 2,200 to 4,600 foot apartments, only 7 of them, and yet have the convenience of a full-service building.
Are these open and available for the public to view on the weekends? And
so 86th Street will be coming to market next week, actually, with a soft opening.
Okay.
And
360 Central Park West.
360 Central Park West is fully open. You can call 212-866-0360 if you would like an appointment to see an apartment there.
And since I've blasted Tony Simone's email repeatedly throughout the show, you can always email Tony, and he will send you over there and give you the people to get in touch with, Jeffrey, if that's okay with you. Good. Well, I've been remiss in not coming to 360 Central Park West, but these sound like really amazing developments, and especially well priced for a 3-bedroom apartment and condominium.
And condominium. That's the other difference. There are only 5 pre-war condominiums on Central Park West, south of 96th Street. And there's something very attractive about being able to buy real property and use it as you see fit.
Yeah, I own a pre-war condo at 50 72nd Street, and I think it was built in 1923. And there's something very unique about that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad it's a condo because it's, that's the reason I ended up buying it at the time. So I bought it way back when in the 1990s. Most of the co-ops in the neighborhood wanted you to pay all cash or 80% down, and I didn't have that kind of money in cash. And so, I went and paid more for a condo, and it was well worth the investment.
And today you can keep that as an investment unit,
yes.
Correct?
Yes, exactly.
Which you would not have been able to use the co-op as an investment unit.
And I mean, now co-ops are allowing complex trusts and stuff like that, but I don't want to digress. Are there websites, or should people go to the Stribling website to look at either of these?
If you go to the Stribling website, you will see 360 Central Park West, and then as of next week, you will see 272 West 86th Street.
And now, does 86th Street have the amenities that you mentioned from 360 CPW?
No, because it is such a small building with only 7 units, it does not have amenities other than the doorman, although 3 of the 7 units have very large outdoor spaces. Our 2 maisonettes are 40 feet wide, so as wide as the nicest mansions in Manhattan, and they have 900-foot gardens each. And then our penthouse has over 2,500 feet of setback terrace space.
What's the maisonette selling for?
They will both be in the mid 7 millions.
Wow, I had 2 floors of a brownstone once that I lived in, and well, it's not a maisonette, but I just liked having the garden in the back, and it was a really unique way to live.
It's the feeling of a home.
Exactly, you have a feeling of a home, and could actually throw a baseball around in the back with my son and barbecue. So it was kind of like a sense of suburban living in the heart of the city.
Exactly.
Which is a really unique feeling and something I really enjoyed. And there's that familiar music that's being played by a string quartet led by Tony Simone and Robert Barrett's back there. And it means it's time to go. Thanks so much for coming in, Jeffrey, joining us in the studio rather than by the phone. It's nice to look at somebody face to face. You've been listening to Stribling's New York on 710 AM WOR Radio and iHeart Media Station. I'm Rob Taub. You can also listen to the podcast and join us again every Sunday night at 11 p.m. Good night.